The stars looked different today. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, staring at the viewing screen. Something massive had just appeared near Jupiter. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. "Sir, we're getting readings," said Officer Lisa Grant from her station. "It's huge. Bigger than anything we've ever built." Jake nodded slowly. His hands gripped the armrest of his captain's chair. After decades of searching, humanity had finally found proof. They weren't alone in the universe. The alien ship was beautiful in a terrifying way. It stretched for miles, covered in strange metal that seemed to shift colors. Hundreds of smaller ships surrounded it like bees around a hive. The whole fleet just sat there, silent and waiting. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. "Let's say hello." The communication officer worked quickly. Within seconds, a face appeared on the screen. It wasn't human. The creature had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Its skin was dark purple and covered in small ridges. When it spoke, a translator converted the sounds into English. "I am Commander Vexthor of the Corinthian Empire," the alien said. Its voice sounded cold and bored. "You are primitive creatures living on a worthless rock. Your civilization ends today." Jake felt his stomach drop. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. Where were the peaceful greetings? The cultural exchange? The hope for friendship? "Commander, I'm Captain Jake Morrison of Earth," he replied, keeping his voice steady. "We mean you no harm. Perhaps we can talk about this." Vexthor made a sound that might have been laughter. "Talk? We do not negotiate with insects. The Corinthian Empire has ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We have conquered 847 star systems. Your primitive world will submit or you will die." Around the bridge, Jake's crew looked at each other nervously. Earth had 3 colonies in their solar system. They had maybe 50 warships total. The alien fleet in front of them probably numbered in the hundreds. "You have 7 of your planet's rotations to surrender," Vexthor continued. "Send all your leaders to us. They will bow before the Emperor. Your weapons will be destroyed. Your people will serve the Empire. This is not a negotiation. This is your only option." Jake leaned forward in his chair. He thought about everything humanity had been through. The wars, the struggles, the millions who had died fighting for freedom throughout history. He thought about his daughter back on Earth, playing in the park without knowing that aliens had just threatened to enslave everyone she loved. "Commander Vexthor," Jake said quietly, "I have a message for you and your empire." The alien's 4 eyes focused on him. "Speak, human. Make your surrender official." "We're not going to surrender," Jake said. His voice was calm, almost friendly. "But I want to give you some advice. You should run. Run far away from Earth. Run as fast as your ships can carry you. Because if you try to attack us, you're going to regret it." The bridge of the alien ship erupted in noise. Jake could hear multiple voices speaking in their language. Then Vexthor's face appeared again, and this time the alien was making a sound that the translator couldn't interpret. It took Jake a moment to realize the creature was laughing. "You?" Vexthor said between laughs. "You threaten us? You have barely left your own planet. We have weapons that can crack worlds in half. We have armies that number in the billions. And you, sitting in your tiny metal box, tell us to run?" "Yes," Jake said simply. "I'm telling you to run. This is your only warning." Vexthor's laughter stopped. 7 days, human. Then we will teach your species what happens when primitives disrespect the Empire." The screen went black. Lisa approached Jake's chair. "Sir, did we just declare war on an alien empire?" Jake sighed. "No, Lisa. We tried to save them from themselves." He pressed a button on his chair. "Get me Earth Command. Tell them to activate all defense protocols. And someone find our history books on human warfare. The aliens are going to need to see them. They need to understand what they're walking into." Outside the ship, the alien fleet began to move. They didn't know it yet, but they had just made the biggest mistake in their empire's 3,000-year history. They had threatened humanity, and humanity had been preparing for war since the day the first human picked up a stone and used it as a weapon. Admiral Lisa Grant stood in the war room deep beneath Earth's military headquarters. Around her, 20 of humanity's top military leaders sat in silence. The holographic display in the center of the room showed the Corinthian fleet, still parked near Jupiter. "They have 7 days," she said. 7 days to learn who we are. 7 days to change their minds and leave." General Paul Henderson, the Army's top commander, shook his head. "They won't leave. Did you see how that Vexthor talked to Jake? They think we're nothing." "Then they're idiots," said Commander Nina Wells. She was young, only 30 years old, but she was the best intelligence officer Earth had. I've been reading their transmissions, breaking their codes. You want to know something interesting? Everyone turned to look at her. The Corinthian Empire has only fought 5 wars in 3,000 years, Nina continued. 5, and all of them ended in less than a month. The aliens they fought surrendered almost immediately. Lieutenant Kyle Johnson pulled up data on his tablet. He was a military historian, someone who studied every war humanity had ever fought. That's nothing, he said. Humans have fought thousands of wars. We've been killing each other since we lived in caves. Show them, Lisa said quietly. Kyle stood and approached the holographic display. With a few touches, images began to appear. Ancient warriors with swords and shields, medieval knights in armor, soldiers from World War I in muddy trenches, the mushroom clouds of nuclear weapons, modern Marines in powered armor. Human history is written in blood, Kyle explained. We've never stopped fighting. Not for a single generation. We've fought over land, resources, religion, politics, and sometimes just because we didn't like how the other group looked. 2 world wars, he continued. 50 million dead in the first one. Over 70 million in the second. And that was before we even left Earth. We fought in every environment imaginable. Underwater, in space, in Arctic snow and desert heat. Paul leaned back in his chair. The Corinthians fight clean wars. Long-range weapons, minimal casualties. They've never experienced close combat. They've never seen guerrilla warfare or terrorist tactics or suicide attacks. They don't understand total war, Lisa added. They think war is about showing superior technology and accepting surrender. They've never fought an enemy that refuses to quit, an enemy that will burn their own cities rather than let them be captured. Nina brought up new data. I hacked into their military database. Want to know what their biggest loss was in any single battle? 300 soldiers. 300. That was their worst day in 3,000 years. The room went quiet. Everyone there knew what humanity's worst days looked like. Cities destroyed. Millions dead in hours. Entire generations wiped out. They have no idea what they're facing, Kyle said. They see our small fleet and think we're weak. They don't understand that humans became the apex predator on Earth, not because we were the biggest or strongest, but because we never gave up, because we learned to cooperate to kill things much larger than us. Lisa walked to the window overlooking the command center below. Thousands of people worked at computers preparing Earth's defenses. I read something once, she said. A quote from an old human warrior. He said that amateurs talk about tactics, but professionals study logistics. The Corinthians sent a fleet to intimidate us, she continued. But that fleet needs supplies. It needs fuel and food and ammunition, and they parked it 7 days away from their nearest base. They're not used to long campaigns. They expect quick victories. Paul smiled. It wasn't a happy smile, so we make them bleed. We drag this out. We hit their supply lines and make them regret ever coming here. We do more than that, Lisa said, turning to face the room. We teach them a lesson that the galaxy will never forget. We show them what happens when you threaten humanity. When you give humans a choice between submission and death, we'll choose death every single time, and we'll take you with us. Nina pulled up images of the Corinthian fleet. They outnumber us 4-1, maybe 5-1. They have better shields and longer-range weapons. But we have something they don't, Kyle said. We have 10,000 years of experience in how to kill efficiently. We've spent our entire history inventing new ways to destroy each other. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, cyber attacks, psychological operations. We've done it all, Lisa nodded. Send a message to all Earth forces. Tell them to prepare for war. And send one more transmission to the Corinthians. Tell them we're giving them one last chance to leave. After that, whatever happens is on them. They won't listen, Paul said. I know, Lisa replied. But when the rest of the galaxy asks what happened, I want them to know we tried. We warned them. We gave them every opportunity to walk away. And when they don't, Nina asked. Lisa's expression hardened. Then we show them why humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The 7 days passed like a nightmare. Earth watched and waited. The Corinthian fleet didn't move. They sat near Jupiter, confident and patient. On the last day they sent their message. Your time is over, Commander Vexthor said. We come now to punish your defiance. Surrender or be destroyed. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his captain's chair aboard the Earth defense ship Vengeance. Around him, 44 other human warships waited. The Corinthians had sent 200 ships. The numbers weren't in humanity's favor. All ships, this is Morrison, Jake said into the communication system. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. And remember, they have no idea what we're capable of. Sir, said his tactical officer, the Corinthian fleet is moving. They're arranging in a standard formation, keeping distance between their ships. Jake smiled. Of course they are. They think this is going to be a clean, organized battle. They're wrong. All ships attack formation Delta. We're going straight at them. The human fleet suddenly accelerated forward. This surprised the Corinthians. In their experience, the smaller fleet should try to run or defend. Instead, the humans charged like wild animals. Colonel Amy Price stood in the troop bay of the Vengeance, surrounded by her Marines. Each soldier wore heavy armor and carried enough weapons to fight a small war alone. Listen up, she shouted. We're not staying on our ships. We're going to board theirs. We're going to go inside and show them what humans do best. Close combat, boarding actions? One young Marine asked. Do the aliens even train for that? Nope, Amy grinned. We checked. They fight at long range. Always have. They've never had enemy soldiers inside their ships. Today they learned something new. The fleets collided in a storm of weapons fire. Human ships took heavy damage, but they kept coming. The Corinthians were confused. Why weren't the humans trying to avoid damage? Launch boarding pods, Jake ordered. Hundreds of small pods shot out from the human ships. They were too small and fast for the alien weapons to track. They slammed into Corinthian ships like bullets, drilling through the hulls. Inside the Corinthian flagship, Commander Vexthor watched his screens in growing horror. What are those? He demanded. What are the humans doing? Sir, they're boarding us, his tactical officer screamed. They're inside Ship 7, Ship 12, Ship 15. They're everywhere. The doors to the Corinthian bridge exploded inward. Colonel Amy Price stepped through the smoke, her rifle raised. Behind her, a dozen human Marines spread out. The Corinthian crew members froze in fear. Hello, Amy said. We're here to teach you a lesson. Throughout the fleet, the same scene played out. Human Marines poured into Corinthian ships. The aliens had never trained for this. They had weapons, but they were designed for ship-to-ship combat, not fighting in narrow corridors. Lieutenant Dan Cooper led his squad through the corridors of a Corinthian destroyer. The aliens fled before them. One brave Corinthian soldier tried to fight. Dan moved faster, his armor enhancing his speed. The alien's weapon fire bounced off his shields. Dan reached the creature in seconds and knocked it unconscious with one hit. They're slow, Dan said to his squad, and they panic easy. Keep pushing. On the Corinthian flagship, Vexthor grabbed a weapon and pointed it at Amy. His hand shook. You cannot do this, he shouted. This is not civilized warfare. Civilized? Amy laughed. You came to our home. You threatened to enslave us. And you talk about civilized? She shot the weapon from his hand. Tell your ships to retreat or we take them all. Vexthor looked around his bridge. Half his crew was unconscious. The humans stood ready, their weapons trained on every alien. Outside, he could see on the screens that 20 of his ships were already disabled. The humans were inside them, tearing them apart from within. I don't understand, Vexthor said weakly. You're supposed to be primitive. You're supposed to be weak. We're human, Amy said. We've been fighting wars since before your empire existed. We've spent 10,000 years learning how to kill. Did you really think you could come here and push us around? Jake's voice came over the communication system. Corinthian fleet, this is Captain Morrison. You have 30 seconds to retreat, or we destroy every ship you have. Vexthor's tactical officer spoke up. Sir, we've lost 43 ships. The humans are boarding 17 more. Our weapons can't hit them once they get close. They sacrificed their own ships, Vexthor whispered. They rammed into us knowing they'd take damage. They don't care about losses. They just want to hurt us. 20 seconds, Jake's voice said. Retreat, Vexthor shouted. All ships, retreat! Get us away from these monsters. The Corinthian fleet turned and ran. They left their damaged ships behind, desperate to escape. The humans didn't pursue. They had made their point. Amy looked at Vexthor. Go home, tell your emperor what happened here. Tell him that humans warned you. Tell him that we're not your slaves and we're not your victims. And tell him that if he sends another fleet, we'll do this again. Only next time we won't let anyone run. The Marines retreated, taking their wounded and leaving the stunned Corinthians behind. As Amy's pod launched back to the Vengeance, she smiled. The war had just begun, and humanity had already won the first battle. Jake watched the alien fleet disappear. Get me a casualty report, he said quietly. 5 ships lost, 12 heavily damaged, his officer replied. Casualties are at 300, sir. 300? Jake thought about the reports he'd read. The Corinthians' worst loss ever, and humanity had just accepted those numbers in a single battle without hesitation. Send a message to Earth Command, Jake said. Tell them the Corinthians ran. Tell them we won. And tell them to prepare, because they're going to come back. And next time they're going to be angry. Emperor Zalkan sat on his throne, reading the report for the 5th time. He couldn't believe it. His punishment fleet destroyed by primitive humans. 200 ships reduced to rubble by a force 1/4 their size. This is impossible, he said to his council. Vexthor must be lying. He must have made a mistake. High Counselor Threnax, the Emperor's oldest advisor, stepped forward. My lord, we have confirmed reports from multiple ship captains. The humans attacked in ways we've never seen. They boarded our vessels. They fought inside our ships. Our soldiers were not prepared for such tactics. Then our soldiers are weak, the Emperor shouted. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. And you tell me we cannot defeat one primitive planet? Perhaps we should study them more, Threnax suggested carefully. Learn their capabilities before we attack again. No, Zalkan stood from his throne. I will not show weakness. If we back down now, every species in our empire will think they can challenge us. We will assemble the Grand Armada. We will crush Earth so completely that no one will ever question our power again. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Grant stood in a military construction facility on Mars. Engineer Kate Foster showed her the new defensive platforms they were building. Massive stations covered in weapons designed to protect humanity's colonies. We're working around the clock, Kate explained. These platforms can hold off a fleet 10 times our size. We've also mined the asteroid belt. If the aliens come back, they'll have to get through a wall of explosives. Good, Lisa said, because they're coming back, and they're going to be angry. Commander Nina Wells walked up to them holding a data pad. Admiral, we've intercepted more Corinthian communications. They're mobilizing something called the Grand Armada. Over 2,000 ships. Lisa felt her blood go cold. 2,000? Yes, ma'am. It's the largest military force the Empire has ever assembled. They're pulling ships from every corner of their territory. The Emperor himself is going to oversee the attack. Kate looked between them. Can we win against that many? We have to, Lisa said simply. What choice do we have? Surrender? Let them enslave us? That's not going to happen. On the outer colonies, General Paul Henderson supervised the evacuation of civilians. Women and children were being sent deeper into human territory, away from the coming battle. The general hated it. He hated that families were being torn apart. But if the Corinthians broke through, he wanted Earth's future safe. How many have we evacuated? He asked his assistant. 3 million so far, sir. But there are still 10 million on the outer stations. Then we keep working. We save who we can. In orbit around Earth, Captain Jake Morrison walked through the Vengeance. His ship had been repaired after the first battle, but scars remained. He ran his hand along a patch of new hull plating. This ship had saved Earth once. Could it do it again? Captain, his communication officer called out. Admiral Grant is broadcasting to all ships. She wants everyone to hear this. Jake moved to the bridge and activated the main screen. Lisa's face appeared. She looked tired but determined. People of Earth, she began. Citizens of humanity's colonies. Soldiers of the Earth Defense Fleet, I have news. The Corinthian Empire is sending their largest fleet to destroy us. Over 2,000 warships are coming to make us slaves or kill us. She paused, letting that sink in. We could surrender. We could beg for mercy. We could hope they'll be kind to us. But we all know that's not going to happen. We know what they want. They want us broken and afraid. They want us to remember that we're nothing compared to their empire. Lisa's expression hardened. But we're not nothing. We're humans. We're the species that survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have destroyed us. We're the species that looked at the stars and decided to reach them, even when everyone said it was impossible. We're the species that never gives up no matter how bad things get. Around the fleet, soldiers stopped their work to listen. On Earth, families gathered around screens. In the colonies, workers paused their tasks. 3 weeks ago, we told the Corinthians to run. Lisa continued. We warned them. We gave them a chance to leave in peace. They laughed at us. They thought we were weak. So we showed them what humans can do when pushed. We destroyed their punishment fleet. We made them run. Now they're coming back with everything they have, and I'm going to tell them the same thing we said before. I'm going to give them one last warning. I'm broadcasting this message across every frequency in the galaxy. Every species in Corinthian space will hear it. Every ship in their armada will receive it. Lisa looked directly into the camera. Corinthian Empire, this is Admiral Lisa Grant of Earth. I'm telling you one final time. Turn around. Go home, leave us alone. What happened to your punishment fleet was just a taste of what we can do. If you bring your Grand Armada here, we will destroy it. We will hurt you so badly that your empire will never recover. This is not a bluff. This is not empty words. This is a promise. She leaned forward. We tried to warn you. We asked you to run. What happens next is not our fault. You were warned. The broadcast ended. Jake sat back in his chair. He knew the Corinthians wouldn't listen. Their pride wouldn't let them back down. Get the fleet ready, he said to his crew. They're coming and they're bringing everything they have. So we show them again. We show them that humans don't surrender. We show them that threatening Earth is the last mistake they'll ever make. Outside his ship, stars filled the darkness. Somewhere out there, the Corinthian Grand Armada was coming. 2,000 ships against humanity's few hundred. The odds were terrible. But humans had faced terrible odds before, and somehow they always found a way to survive. The Corinthian Grand Armada arrived like a storm. 2,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They arranged themselves in perfect formations, their weapons powered and ready. It was the most powerful military force the Empire had ever assembled. Admiral Corveth commanded the Armada from his flagship. He had read the reports about the previous battle, but he didn't believe them. Humans were primitive. 2,000 ships would make them understand their place in the galaxy. Send a message to Earth, he ordered. Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender. If they refuse, we will destroy every human settlement in this system. The communication officer worked for a moment, then looked up confused. Sir, we're not receiving any response. The humans are silent. They're afraid, Corveth said with satisfaction. Good, let them fear us, but the humans weren't afraid. They were waiting. On the bridge of the Vengeance, Captain Jake Morrison watched the massive alien fleet on his screens. They're bunched together, he observed. Just like before. They still think this is going to be a normal battle. Sir, we're receiving the signal, his tactical officer said. Jake pressed a button. Execute Operation Solar Storm. Throughout the solar system, things started happening all at once. Asteroids that had been mined and hollowed out suddenly came to life. They weren't natural anymore. Humans had turned them into weapons. Massive engines fired, pushing the rocks toward the Corinthian fleet. Inside each asteroid were nuclear weapons enough to crack a planet. What is that? Corveth shouted as his sensors detected the incoming rocks. Asteroids. They're throwing rocks at us? Sir, those aren't normal asteroids, his science officer said, his voice shaking. They're filled with nuclear devices. Hundreds of them. Before Corveth could react, the asteroids reached his fleet. They exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The nuclear weapons weren't as advanced as the Corinthian bombs, but there were so many of them. Ship after ship was destroyed or damaged. The perfect formation broke apart as captains tried to avoid the deadly rocks. Defensive fire, Corveth screamed. Destroy those asteroids! But more were coming. The humans had prepared the entire asteroid belt. Thousands of rocks, all aimed at the Corinthian fleet, all filled with death. Then the drones came. Commander Pete Sullivan sat in a control room on Mars, watching thousands of screens. Each screen showed the view from a different drone. The humans had built them by the millions. Small, fast, and cheap. Each one carried a simple explosive. Alone, they were harmless. Together, they were a nightmare. Release Swarm Alpha, Pete ordered. Like locusts, the drones poured out from hidden stations throughout the solar system. They moved in coordinated patterns surrounding the Corinthian ships. The aliens fired their weapons, destroying hundreds of drones. But for every one destroyed, 10 more took its place. The drones attached themselves to the Corinthian ships and exploded. Individually, the explosions were small. But thousands of small explosions could break through any armor. This is impossible, Corveth shouted. How many of these machines do they have? Tens of thousands, sir. Maybe hundreds of thousands. They're swarming around our ships. Our shields can't keep them all out. On Earth, Major Carey Watson commanded a squadron of stealth ships. While the Corinthians were focused on the asteroids and drones, She led her ships around the battle. They moved quietly, using special technology that made them nearly invisible. "Target their supply ships," Carrie ordered. "Without supplies, that armada can't stay here long." Her squadron attacked from behind, hitting the massive supply vessels that carried food, fuel, and ammunition for the Corinthian fleet. The aliens hadn't expected an attack from that direction. 3 supply ships exploded before they even knew what hit them. Back on the Vengeance, Jake watched the battle unfold. "Now," he said quietly, "send in the fleet." The human warships, only 300 strong, charged into the chaos. They moved between the asteroids and drones, using them as cover. They targeted damaged Corinthian ships, finishing off vessels that were already weakened. Colonel Amy Price and her Marines launched again in boarding pods. This time they targeted command ships. If they could capture or destroy the ships giving orders, the whole fleet would fall into confusion. Admiral Corveth watched his perfect armada fall apart. Ships were exploding everywhere. The humans fought with tactics he'd never seen. They used nuclear weapons like toys. They sent machines to die in the millions. They turned rocks into missiles. They attacked from every direction at once. "Sir, we've lost 300 ships," his tactical officer reported. 400 more are damaged. "The humans are targeting our supply vessels. If we don't retreat, we'll run out of ammunition and fuel." "No." Corveth slammed his fist on his chair. "We have 2,000 ships. We can't lose to these primitives." 1,700 ships now, sir." Another one just exploded. On Earth, Admiral Lisa Grant watched the battle from the command center. She felt no joy in the destruction, only grim determination. The Corinthians had come to destroy humanity. They were learning what happened when humans fought for survival. "Admiral," Nina Wells said beside her, "the Corinthian fleet is breaking formation. Some ships are trying to retreat." "Let them go," Lisa said. "We made our point. We warned them. They didn't listen." In space, Jake Morrison opened a communication channel to the Corinthian flagship. "Admiral Corveth, this is Captain Morrison. You should run now, while you still can. We turned our entire solar system into a weapon. Every rock, every piece of metal, everything we have. We told your Emperor what would happen. He didn't believe us." Corveth stared at the human captain on his screen. "You're monsters," he whispered. "You fight without honor, without civilization." "No," Jake replied. "We fight to survive. That's what humans do. We survive, and we make sure that anyone who threatens us regrets it. Now leave before we destroy what's left of your fleet." The Grand Armada, or what remained of it, turned and fled. They left behind 600 destroyed ships and thousands of dead. The greatest military force in Corinthian history had been broken by a species they thought was primitive. Lisa stood in the command center, watching the alien ships disappear. "Get me damage reports," she said, "and prepare the fleet. This isn't over. We hurt them badly, but empires don't give up that easily." "What do we do now?" Nina asked. Lisa's expression was cold. "Now we stop waiting for them to attack us. Now we take the fight to them." The Corinthian Grand Armada arrived like a storm. 2,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. They arranged themselves in perfect formations, their weapons powered and ready. It was the most powerful military force the Empire had ever assembled. Admiral Corveth commanded the Armada from his flagship. He had read the reports about the previous battle, but he didn't believe them. Humans were primitive. 2,000 ships would make them understand their place in the galaxy. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered. "Tell them they have 1 hour to surrender. If they refuse, we will destroy every human settlement in this system." The communication officer worked for a moment, then looked up confused. "Sir, we're not receiving any response. The humans are silent." "They're afraid," Corveth said with satisfaction. "Good, let them fear us, but the humans weren't afraid. They were waiting." On the bridge of the Vengeance, Captain Jake Morrison watched the massive alien fleet on his screens. "They're bunched together," he observed. "Just like before. They still think this is going to be a normal battle." "Sir, we're receiving the signal," his tactical officer said. Jake pressed a button. "Execute Operation Solar Storm." Throughout the solar system, things started happening all at once. Asteroids that had been mined and hollowed out suddenly came to life. They weren't natural anymore. Humans had turned them into weapons. Massive engines fired, pushing the rocks toward the Corinthian fleet. Inside each asteroid were nuclear weapons enough to crack a planet. "What is that?" Corveth shouted as his sensors detected the incoming rocks. "Asteroids. They're throwing rocks at us? Sir, those aren't normal asteroids, his science officer said, his voice shaking. They're filled with nuclear devices. Hundreds of them. Before Corveth could react, the asteroids reached his fleet. They exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The nuclear weapons weren't as advanced as the Corinthian bombs, but there were so many of them. Ship after ship was destroyed or damaged. The perfect formation broke apart as captains tried to avoid the deadly rocks. Defensive fire, Corveth screamed. Destroy those asteroids! But more were coming. The humans had prepared the entire asteroid belt. Thousands of rocks, all aimed at the Corinthian fleet, all filled with death. Then the drones came. Commander Pete Sullivan sat in a control room on Mars, watching thousands of screens. Each screen showed the view from a different drone. The humans had built them by the millions. Small, fast, and cheap. Each one carried a simple explosive. Alone, they were harmless. Together, they were a nightmare. Release Swarm Alpha, Pete ordered. Like locusts, the drones poured out from hidden stations throughout the solar system. They moved in coordinated patterns surrounding the Corinthian ships. The aliens fired their weapons, destroying hundreds of drones. But for every one destroyed, 10 more took its place. The drones attached themselves to the Corinthian ships and exploded.